Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, Merriment Makers, to another Merriment Monday Live. I'm Mary, your host, and today we are diving into a topic that is so important for living a fulfilled and joyful, merry life. So, that is self esteem. And I know that this is a word we hear a lot, but I'm going to help you truly understand what that means today, in case you don't know, and how it impacts every area of your life, and importantly, how you can boost it. So, if you're new here, I'm so glad that you've joined us today. Whether you're here live or on the replay, you can leave a comment and let us know me know where you're joining in from, how you found me. And this is a weekly or bi weekly series all about how to create a life filled with joy and confidence and play, and of course, merriment. And by the end of today's workshop, really, it's a free live series of a workshop that you're going to have an actionable step and multiple steps to boost your self-esteem and feel more confident. That's the goal here. So don't forget that there's always more ways to work with me and to work with yourself and evolve. And there's always a special way to take things further, which is with the Merriment Makers membership, but more on that later. So let's dive right in. And something I like to do here is talk about magical merriment moments, which you can look at as gratitude, you can look at as magic, you can look at as a reflection, but I like to kind of get grounded in terms of what was going on for me in the past week, for you, and if you have anything that you want to share, I would love for you to let us know what's going on with you in the chat, and I'll tell you what this little slideshow is for me. So, what's been going on with you in the past week, the last 2 weeks since we last met? Here are some of the things that are showing up here on this little slideshow. So a lot of unicorns, a lot of rainbows. It's not that abnormal for me. I went to this really cool park over in Frederick, Maryland, and it is absolutely insane what they're doing over there. It's really cool. It is a themed playground of rainbows and fairy tales, and everything was based on like Alice in Wonderland and just wonderful fairy tales. And they had these giant spider webs and playground equipment shaped like flamingos and rainbows, and it was all spongy and interactive, and it was just very, very cool. And it's called like Sophie and Maggie's Playground, I think. And they're also doing like this large fundraiser to get over $1 million to continue adding to it. So there's a lot of land and they just want to keep adding. But honestly, if this is all they ever did, even just one section of the park was really, really cool. And you can go and you can check it out. So it's free. And then the last two things that you're seeing here are from actually just in the past 24 hours. I went to my friend April. She had a birthday party for her child and she rented out an entire roller rink, and we got to have fun in there for a few hours. And towards the end, her kid likes unicorns. That's pretty cool. Who doesn't? And I dressed up in my inflatable unicorn costume and I went out on the skate floor and I danced around and the kids skated with me. And this is a little screenshot from one of the videos from that. And April is also a very talented balloon artist. You can actually hire her. Her business is called April's Twisted Entertainment. But she made these really incredible archways out of all these balloons, and she even covered this scooter with all of this balloon installation that looks like a unicorn. And when she was cleaning up, she asked if I wanted it, which is something that she tends to do when she's cleaning up. And I said, yeah, there's no reason to not repurpose these balloons instead of just popping them. So she, after she had cleaned everything up and was wrapping everything up, she brought a U-Haul of balloons to my house late at night. And because I'm already decorated for Halloween, the large unicorn ended up going in the giant spider web in my yard. So it looks like the spider caught a unicorn, which is very silly. And then there's just walls of balloons lining my porch and between two trees in my yard. So later today, after I finish this, I'm gonna go take some more pictures in the day. I wanted to take pictures at night just in case something didn't last with, elements of popping and things like that, but it looks like it has held up pretty good. So you'll get to see some more pictures on my social media from that. So what has been going on with you? Please share in the chat. Please share on the replay, no matter how you're watching. And let's move on to good news. So in terms of what I've experienced, I went on this art walk, which are things that are promoting people to walk in within an arts district. We have multiple up and coming arts districts here in Baltimore City. And one of them is Station North. One of them is Bromo Arts District. One of them is Highlandtown. So what they do is they encourage people to come out on a specific day, and they have all the businesses and arts places kind of do like a little promotion, do interactive activities, and it's kind of a way for you to walk through a place and like a bunch of places on foot and experience all these things, kind of like a sidewalk sale, but instead like where everything's out and you get to experience all the things, but instead of it being just a sale, it's like, oh, what is all the things that you offer? There's music, there's performances, there's things on display, and you kind of get to be like, oh, I didn't realize that this was here. I've been kind of snoozing on this. So an art walk is a way to inform you about what's available in your community. So I did an art walk, and there were a lot of really wonderful things on that. And it's a way to, I don't know, I think any kind of walk is a way to kind of wander and experience the joy that you can see in any enclosed location, right? But I really enjoyed this. We were at one of the spaces on Howard Street, and I popped my head in while they were playing live music, and right in front of the door there was this lovely mirror and a place for you to add positive affirmations. And it was nice to see that there's so many places that are kind of doing this now, and this was something that I used to do, 15 years ago, and people used to look at me like I was crazy. And now the act of, utilizing positive affirmations, let alone in an interactive exhibit, is something that is common, commonplace, and maybe even overdone. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So here is another piece of good news from the outside world, not just with me. So this is the fact that Lego, the Lego company, is paying out of pocket to make their bricks out of renewable resources by 2026. So that's kind of cool. Like, they're deciding that that's important to them, and they're just not waiting for a grant or anything to happen. They're like, no, we're going to do that. And that's what's happening. So I think that's kind of cool. Whatever you want to make happen, you can make happen. So this marquee I didn't change this marquee. You know what? Here, I'm going to change it right now. Boo! There we go. So if you are feeling kind, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. There are more videos coming out all the time, whether they are shorts or full length or full webinars. We had the body acceptance seminar, and you can access the entire thing on my YouTube channel. There's a ton of archives, but also if you subscribe and you hit the little icon that gives you notifications, you will know when there's a new Merriment Monday live like this coming soon. So the next one will be in 2 weeks, 2 Mondays from now, which is September 30th. And we're going to be talking about releasing your anger. But today, let's get into this week's topic, which is boosting your self-esteem. So I would love to know, what you feel is your block with self-esteem. What is your feeling of not being able to stand into your own highest potential of self-esteem? What is it that you are struggling with, right? In terms of self-esteem, confidence. And let's really actually start by clarifying all of these things. Let's talk about what self-esteem actually is, just to get on the same page, because you might have heard terms like self-love, self-confidence, self-worth, and they're all getting tossed around, especially today with pop psychology. But here's a quick breakdown so we're all on the same page. Oh, Mitzi, you want to say hi? Real quick. Real quick. Yeah, Mitzi's not feeling super great, but she still wanted to say hi. Yeah, hello. No one hates saying cat. I know. Okay. You have pretty good self-esteem though, don't you? Because you're beautiful and you know it. Okay. Thank you. So, self-esteem is developed from external experiences, okay? It's how you feel about yourself today based on what has Mitzi hair on me. Based on what other people and other experiences have led you to feel, what other people have said, what other people have done, okay? It's really a mishmash of what's happened and how you have processed it and how that's reflecting on how you feel today, all right? And self-confidence is intrinsic belief about your skills and your abilities and your potential. So self-esteem in particular can be really influenced. It is really influenced by things outside of us, by people's comments and judgments and the experiences that we've had. By definition, it's different like that. So self-esteem and confidence are used interchangeably, but they're actually not. Confidence is coming from the inside, esteem is coming from the outside. And when self-esteem is low, when we are allowing other people to affect us, it affects everything else. So if you feel low about yourself, it's harder to find a partner, to nail a job interview, to feel happy just day to day. And if you ever doubted yourself or wondered if you're enough or felt crushed by someone's harsh words, you're not alone. And it also, it's almost like we need to be able to process what has happened with other people's experiences, like with our experiences from other people, from other circumstances. And this also includes society, right? Processing media, processing what we have been told, all of the shoulds, right? All of the things that are like, this is how you're supposed to be. This is how you should do. This is like the bullies, whether they're overt or explicit or, subliminal. It doesn't really matter. All of the things that we have processed in the past, that is what's going into our self-esteem. And if we can't put that through a filter and be like, that's just their stuff, that's what they're projecting, that's what they think we are supposed to be, and use your confidence to say, that doesn't apply to me. I don't get it. That's their fear. That's their stuff. That's their thing. I'm so sorry for them. I'm so sorry that that's what they're experiencing and that they don't have the confidence that it takes for them to not be able to project that onto other people. But I don't need to deal with that and I can let that go. But if you don't have the confidence to filter out the stuff that feels negative, that feels attacked, then your self-esteem will be deeply affected. That's the difference. So let's dig a little deeper into the consequences of low self-esteem. So what does low self-esteem look like if you have it on a person, and how does it affect you? I mean, you become really pessimistic. You get really negative. You become obsessed with weaknesses, both in yourself and in someone else. You start doubting your choices. Everything that you do, you might need to ask someone else, what do you think about this? Does this sound right? What do you think? Or when you do it, you take it back. You feel like you're not enough. You feel like you're too much. You're sensitive to criticism. If someone says something about you or they question anything, you are deeply defensive and you need to explain why you got this way, how you got this way, why it wasn't your fault. There's also a lot of blame involved in that. There's also a lot of social withdrawal, not because you're introverted, but because you're scared. And speaking of scared, there's a big fear that comes along with low self-esteem. And usually it's around failure. And that manifests in a lot of ways, usually not usually, but likely with perfectionism. And that also looks very different for a lot of people, with not having a lot of motivation, with being scared to finish something, with being scared to start something, with being scared that it, like, finding a way to not do anything, because if we do it, then someone will be able to say that it isn't good. So it's a lot of ways to not do what we want to do, to not be who we think that we could be, because it's easier to not be criticized. We have been criticized in the past. Self-esteem, experiences, past experiences, the lens through other people. We have been criticized in the past. Maybe it's there's obviously a spectrum of anything. There's an extreme spectrum. The kinds of things that I've heard vary so drastically, right? From the worst thing that has ever happened to someone that they can think of is that they were denied getting the thing that they wanted in that specific color. Truly, like, that is the biggest trauma that someone has, and they cling to it because the human brain does actually want conflict. We need something to process. And things that I can't even say here because it would actually really wreck you just to hear it. So, I mean, we have been, some people, the kind of experiences that we've had have been so traumatic that being criticized is just kind of like a way of life, right? It's just, that is what it is. So we do become sensitive to criticism, or we become numb to it, right? And numb, remember, is not actually feeling nothing. It's feeling everything and then putting up a defense wall to be like, I can't deal with this anymore. So having low self-esteem means that you have experienced so many things, or at least enough things, that have made you feel like you suck. And that anything that you do in the future is going to suck. So there's no point in trying, essentially, at the very core. That's what it is. So you're going to find a reason to not do your best, if at all. And there are all of these other ways that come out of these symptoms of finding these ways that feel like the problem, but they're not the problem. So, like, doubting your choice of, well, maybe I should do this instead of this, or maybe I should, like, tinker with this, or maybe I should change the font on this, or maybe I should just, like, worry about how the fact that I don't feel like I have enough energy, or maybe I'm, like, actually worried about, how this election is turning out because I'm so negative, or, like, maybe I'm just really going to get really sensitive about this critique when this critique could actually help me, or maybe I'm just going to, like, withdraw from everyone and just sit here, or maybe I'm just going to be so scared of what it would look like to share my art, da 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 da. Those are all symptoms, not the injury. The injury is that you are scared that if you are who you are, people will hate it. That's the injury. That's the real crux of everything. If you are who you are, people are going to hate it because you were told, you were shown, it was experienced for you that at a younger age, before now, people didn't like it. When you were being honest, when you were being vulnerable, when you didn't know that there was anything to lose, you were honest, you were vulnerable, and people showed you that they didn't like it. And that happens in a number of ways. So now you don't feel like it's safe to be who you are. And you find ways to self-sabotage. You find ways to get in your own way. You find ways to make sure that there's a roadblock, whether it's pessimism or procrastination or sensitivity. But if you realize that those are actually all things that are symptoms of fearing being who you are, you can start to look at those experiences of, like, you can even look at procrastination as one of them, of being like, okay, so the real reason that I'm procrastinating is the fact that I don't have high self-esteem. And the reason I don't have high self-esteem is because I was told that I wasn't allowed to be myself when I was younger, and it's actually safe to be myself now. So if I can tell myself that it's safe to be myself now, then I don't have to procrastinate because it'll be safe to put this thing out in the world. And you can apply that to literally all of the other symptoms. So it's a long list. They probably sound familiar. All of us have probably done most of them at some point. It's just a sign that we have work to do. And I can help you, guide you through it. It's just so easy to get stuck in the cycle, you know? And the good news is that we have the power to turn literally anything around. Literally anything. People can change from not being able to walk to being able to walk with changing their diet. Like, this world is amazing. Our bodies are amazing. They're disgusting, but they're amazing. And so is the world, right? Like, everything is possible. It is. It really is. But the problem is that we don't believe it. We don't believe it. And that's another thing that happens with low self-esteem is we are deeply negative. We're deeply cynical. We're deeply pessimistic. And I'm not asking you to be like, I can fly. I'm asking you to change your mind a little bit, to allow yourself to believe 1% in another outcome. A little bit. Can you open your mind a little bit? Can you play devil's advocate a little bit? A little? 1%? Possibly? Can you have the idea that possibly this is true? Can you be open to the idea that possibly you've been acting like this a little bit? Are you negative a little bit, maybe? Can you start standing up for yourself? Can you start accepting compliments? Can you start taking risks? Can you start really living your life? That might sound really good, but what needs to happen in order for those things to happen is a big deal. It's a big deal. When people say they change their life, like, those things in itself, standing up for yourself, accepting compliments, taking risks, living your life, that is changing your life. That is. And if you've done any of those things, if you've gone from not being able to do any of those things to being able to do any of those things, can you take a minute right now and just acknowledge that? Like, oh my God, you did that. That's another thing, is usually when we're in this state of low self-esteem, we have lost perspective of what we can do, what we have done, and what we can still do. And there's a huge, especially if you're in this state of interest in evolution, personal development, self-improvement, you are probably not someone who is taking a lot of time celebrating each win. You want the next thing. You have ambition, and it might not all the time be driven by a love-based desire. It might be driven by shame. The reason that you want to improve might be because you think that you're not good enough. And if you can want to change something because you, like, there's some effect to changing from shame, from motivating, from vanity, from anything really, because as long as what outlasts it is a positive intrinsic desire, then it will stay. But if you only come from that place, then it's not going to stick. So I want you to think about the things that you have done, to practice noticing what's working, to practice noticing the shifts that you've already made. Can you make a list right now of like 3 things that you have done in the past 5 years? In the past day? Something that you have experienced that you handled better than you would have 5 years ago. It's a big deal, because you know what? If you're here, you're doing something that most people aren't doing, which is giving a shit. You are giving a shit about your happiness, which is, in my opinion, the most important thing. And most people don't do that. Most people are listening to not this. They're listening to I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to judge everything else, but because there's nothing bad about anything else. It's just that they're not also doing this, right? There is no concept of evolution improvement, and I think the world would deeply benefit from that, from any sort of self-reflection. So I want you to acknowledge the fact that you're here is fantastic. That in and of itself, the desire is fantastic. And I bet you that there is something that you have dealt with in the past 6 months, a grief, a struggle, a conflict, a relationship, a fight, something negative, that the way that you handled it, the way that you bounced back from it is so different than you would have with the version of yourself 5 years ago. And that is something to celebrate. Okay, so let's get into the good stuff. How to boost your self-esteem. So I have a long list on my blog. I have much more in the Merriment Makers membership. And I have ideas for you today. So I don't think you should always do a bunch of stuff at once. I think it's good to just do like 1 or 2 things at first and just start with what resonates, you know? So the first thing I will always say is to go on solo dates, to leave the house by yourself. Because one, we're not getting enough time outside. We're not getting enough time outside the house. We're not getting enough time alone in a deliberate way. You might live alone. You might feel lonely. And you might also just be spending a lot of time at the house, especially if you work from home. So I need you to put on your calendar like a weekly or at least monthly solo date. And this I have on my website, if you just search uncustomary.org solo date, you will be able to find a guide and a list of not just places to go, but how to do this. And it's really just about making the time, putting it on your schedule and going. And it can be anything you want. You can walk, you can drive, you can go to a museum, you can go to the movies, you can take pictures. It doesn't matter what you do. It can be something that you already do. It's just that you're like kind of showering and getting dressed and going out and spending time with yourself. And if that's taking you out of your comfort zone, which for a lot of you it will be, that's really good. Because here's something else with self-esteem and confidence. Because with self-esteem, what we're trying to do is re-establish the fact that you are good by kind of minimizing and quieting the noise of the past experiences, right? By definition, the self-esteem is the past stuff, right? So we are doing 2 things. We are looking at the voices that are happening, and we're talking to our inner critic, which is on this list, and I'll get there in a second. But we're also eating more vegetables than junk food. Okay? So when you change a diet, it's like you don't always have to just like say, I'm never going to eat junk food again. You can just say, I'm going to eat more vegetables. And like when you eat more vegetables, you're going to be full first, and then you won't have as much room in your tummy for junk food. It's not that you say, I'm never going to eat ho-hos again or whatever it is. You just say, I'm going to make sure I eat all this first. And if I have room, then I'll eat ho-hos. But most of the time, if you eat that much vegetables first, you won't have room for the ho-ho. So what I'm suggesting is that you start putting practices into your life that are active inspiration boosters, that are active joy boosters, that are active things that are filling you up. Because remember that the self-esteem is coming from a place that you didn't feel safe to be yourself, right? So we need to create a space where it does feel safe to be yourself, where we need to be reminded of who we are and how it feels to be us. We are never, in merriment making, we are never adding stuff to who we are. We are only stripping stuff back. So most of the time we have added on stuff. We have added on so many things, whether it's outfits or decorations or habits or speech patterns or friends, or a lot of things. We've usually added on stuff to fill a hole. And it's because we stopped doing something that felt like who we wanted to be. And the only things that you should ever add is if something was taken from you or that you felt that you had to stop doing because that wasn't allowed. Okay? But as you do that, you'll realize that everything else kind of falls away. Going on dates by yourself will kind of force you to remember how to spend time with yourself. A lot of us are uncomfortable being alone. And it's because we're scared to be with ourselves. We're scared to be with our own thoughts. We're scared to be home alone without TV on, without audio on, just to be here with our own thoughts. And that's because we're scared of ourselves. We're scared of what our own thoughts have to say because we're anxious. And one of the reasons that we're anxious is because we're living our lives unlived. Self-esteem isn't just positive affirmations. You say a positive affirmation and then you become more positive. You become more confident. You boost your self-esteem. No, it's deeper than that. It is looking at who you were when the esteem started tanking. It's looking at who you felt you couldn't be, who you felt was attacked when people bullied you, when society said or implied overtly or subliminally that who you were wasn't okay, naturally. When you felt that you had to start masking who you were, when you had to start hiding who you were, when it wasn't cool anymore, when you found out that you were misunderstood and the weirdo, all of that stuff that you had to start like compartmentalizing, that's when your self-esteem started tanking. And that's how you started to become jaded. That's how you started to become pessimistic. And that's when all of these other symptoms started coming out. And they might have also started coming out as disorders because we didn't have control of our own autonomy and independence and radical weirdness. So we started... Mitzi, come on. So we started trying to exact control through other ways. And a lot of times that happens through disorders. If you look back, there might be some sort of pattern with that. And a lot of times these symptoms will alleviate once we regain our autonomy. Once we begin feeling expressed as who we are, your symptoms will alleviate in other areas. And yeah, I'm talking about anxiety. I'm talking about depression. I'm also talking about OCD. I'm talking about PTSD. I'm talking about mental illness. I can't promise anything, but I can only speak from my own experience. You could. So yeah, going on dates by yourself, you're going to have to face yourself. You're going to have to face your thoughts. You're going to have to face your fears. And you're going to have to figure out, like, what do I want to do? You know how many times, like, people are asked, what are your dreams? And they're like, oh, I got big dreams. I got big dreams. And not only are they not doing anything with them, but it's bigger than that. They don't know how to say what they are. They don't know what they are. If you get to a table and someone tells you that you can have anything in the world, you better know what to ask for. Do you know? Go on dates by yourself, outings, whatever you want to call them, adventures. Okay, the next thing is to keep a list of compliments that you've received. This is specifically to balance out the negative stuff that has been in your brain for a long time. The past experiences, the past stuff that's been coming at you, right? Overtly, subliminally. I don't know. I keep missaying that. So this is screenshotting anything that has ever come at you on Instagram, on a Facebook post. It's like even anything that it can be anything. It can be about your parents. It doesn't matter. It's just noting the positivity, the goodness that's coming at you in any way. And you can go back in archives. You can go back as far as you want. You can go back to elementary school. You can go back to your yearbooks. You can go back and find awards, any sort of accolade, anything at all. Okay. And I just want you to look and find the things that people have said about you. And I know that sometimes it's hard for us to accept them. And it's also hard for us to believe them, especially when we're in this state. And that is why collecting a large amount of them is helpful. When you have evidence, right? We're looking at like using our logical mind to kind of trump a more emotional mind, right? That's being a little bit illogical, a little more fear-based. So if you have, 20 people that have said, I think you are insert adjective, and they all have said this same thing, it's like, wow, maybe I am not. Okay. And then you can even turn that into some sort of affirmation, incantation, something that you say daily. And there is some, like I was kind of saying that, self-esteem is not just saying affirmations, right? It is going deeper into who we are and figuring out why our self was attacked when we were younger, right? What it is that we feel we weren't allowed to be. And that is deeply true. And there are tools that we can use, such as affirmations, like to train our brain to become more comfortable with exposure. So when you say if you see that there's like 20 things in your evidence-based screenshots and all these things that everyone's keeps saying, like, you are so adventurous or something like that, okay? And you're still like, I'd like to believe that, but I'm not. But it sounds good, then I want you to change it into an affirmation that says, I am adventurous. And I want you to say it 15 times a day, every day, until you believe it. And you can also turn this into a tapping. You can search online for tapping. You can make your own tapping. You can come into the Merriment Makers and you can request a tapping. So, I mean, there's EFT is a very powerful tool as well. So that's another way to kind of like really lock in affirmations. Now, spending time naked is another one. And this is kind of mixing in with your body and self-esteem. And also, I got to say, a lot of the reasons that we have been feeling like we're not good enough has to do with our bodies, right? Whether it's in one way or another. And also just accepting our physical bodies as an entire entity is also very important. So spending time naked is always a really good answer. So what I recommend doing, if you're not comfortable going all the way at first, is to just find the part that you're uncomfortable with and just be like, I'm naked here. And just kind of expose that part for X amount of minutes and be with that part for that time, and do that as like an exercise every day for a while, and then try to expose more and then keep going. So a lot of this is exposure. I come from a cognitive behavioral based Jungian psychological practice theory of how to incorporate your self-esteem, and really just anything in terms of psychology, I think that it's most effective for us to not just only know something, but to do it. And learning is not just knowing something, but actually doing it, right? So, and changing our behavior. So if you, sometimes I call it shelf knowledge. Like if you hear this or you have a book and you read it and you're like, oh yeah, I know it, I know it, I know it, I know it. And it's like, yeah, you know it, but you're not doing anything about it. And that's just what I call shelf knowledge. But like Hormozy will say something like, if you, his example is always that if you give someone, if you tell them to answer the phone, because he does a lot of sales calls, and he says, you answer the phone and you tell them, okay, that was good. Now I want you to read the script the next time you answer the phone. And they read the script. And if the next time they answer the phone, they read the script, they have learned and they have changed because they have changed their behavior. But if the next time they answer the phone and they don't read the script, they did not learn because they did not change their behavior. And that's kind of like where, you hear an apology without changed behavior is just words, right? So you have to remember that that's you too. And that's your promise to yourself. So if you feel like you aren't doing anything or you're not making the changes that you want to make, are you self-knowledging all the stuff that you know, or are you actually implementing it? So Jungian psychology, bringing the theory into the tangible, actually practicing it through exposure, cognitive, behavioral, in the field. So yeah, going on dates by yourself, keeping compliments that you've received and reading them, and spending time naked. And then the next thing is speaking to your inner critic. So you can come to this from multiple angles. And what I mean by your inner critic is the voices that you hear. And it appears differently in everyone because the way that we process our inner monologue is very different depending on how we process information. So any way that you are hearing a voice in your head, whether it's of remembering from a past bully, of remembering from a parent or a commercial or anything, right? That doesn't feel good. That's reminding you that what you're doing isn't okay, that you're not supposed to be you. That is promoting your behavior to be fearful of failure and doubting your choices and sensitive to criticism and focusing on your weakness and being pessimistic and negative. Any of those things that we talked about, then trying to become aware, honestly, is the first and possibly hardest step to become like able to separate that from your own thoughts as a different thing. And depending on how you think, it might not be that difficult because sometimes we think in different voices, different sounds, and things like that. But just being able to separate the fact that it is happening is essential. It's necessary, it's dire for this one. And honestly, it's extremely important for changing your self-esteem in a positive direction. So sometimes in the past and when I first started, I believed that it was important and maybe the only way to only speak assertively to your inner critic, to tell them to shut up, to be maybe even mean to them and just be like, get the hell out of here. And it's definitely a tactic that you can use. And in some cases, I think that it's necessary depending on the situation that you're in. And at the end of the day, my more mature advice is to talk to your inner critic and maybe have like a session with them, ask them to come out and talk to them. You can, if that feels weird, you can journal to them or you can talk out loud, or you can do like an embodiment session, or you can do it with a therapist or a coach. There's a lot of ways you could do that, but imagine that they're like a separate entity and you want to think about them like a bully, but it's a bully that's been with you the whole time and that they a bully isn't going to really, at the end of the day, respond to shut the hell up, right? They're going to respond to being asked what's wrong. When we try to shut down trolls on the internet, if you give them like, hey, I hate you, shut up, that feeds them, right? That's what they want. They want the negative energy. But if you're like, hey, are you okay? What's going on with you? Usually that's actually exactly what they need, and it disarms them. So remember that this is exactly like that in terms of dynamic and power exchange. And the Shyamalan twist is that it's you. You are the inner critic. It might actually be your inner advocate. And they are doing the best that they can. And all that they've seen is the negative stuff. So you need to remind them of the positive stuff. It's actually your responsibility to remind them of all the compliments that you've received, all the accolades that you've had, all of the things that you can do now, all of your skills, all of the things that your 10-year-old self would be really proud of, all of the things that you can do now. And if you are able to kind of make peace with your inner critic instead of being angry with them, I think that they are much more likely to understand where you are now and feel peace, because all that they are is scared. And it's a piece of your subconscious that hasn't seen anything except they've just been soaking up the negative. So imagine that it's just like a part of you that's been trapped under the stairs, and all they've ever heard was the negative stuff, and they need to know that it's safe now. And yeah, I think that's a good place to start. Also, you can do what I think I call the happy journal. It's a gratitude journal. It's a merriment journal. It doesn't really matter what you call it, but you can write down good things that are happening to you. You can write down compliments people give you. You can write down things that you're proud of. You could write down things that you like about your body. You can write down a moment that gives you joy. But when you look back on it, it's like a dose of magic. And I also have blog posts about that as well. So tell me in the comments, like, what's one thing that you do already that makes you feel amazing about yourself? And are you doing it? Or is that something that you do? A lot of us know the things that make us feel good, and then we blow past the simple. We blow past the basic because we think that that's not going to help us anymore. We already did the 101 class. There's no need to do that anymore. But I got to tell you that all of the experts are still doing the 101. All of the experts, all of the people that you love, all of the people that you admire, all of the celebrities, all of the successful people, all of the billionaires, all of them, they have their morning routine. They have their basic 101. They are not skipping leg day, whatever that version is for them. And they're just not. They know better. They know that the 101 got them to 201 and the 201 got them to 301, and they are not skipping the essentials. So what makes you happy, and when's the last time you made time for it? Because nothing else is going to get done until you feel good. You have to feel good to do good. And as a quick side note, because I get this question a lot, does working on self-esteem or self-love or self-confidence or any of it make you narcissistic? And the answer is no way. Loving yourself isn't about thinking you're better than other people or constantly talking about yourself. Narcissism is honestly a whole other conversation, and frankly it's become very annoying to me and frustrating that it's become part of pop psychology and the way that people are using it today. This is not something that I even had to address 10 years ago, but I just want to reassure you that focusing on self-esteem is about nurturing your relationship with yourself. And even in Jungian psychology, there is a separation between narcissism and a healthy kind of narcissism as well. This is about making sure that you feel valued so that you can radiate energy out into the world. And honestly, even if you are, the fact that you're worried about being narcissistic demonstrates the fact that you are likely not. So I just want to assure you that this is all okay. And you cannot, like I say, you have to feel good to do good. So it benefits everyone. Okay. So I hope this was helpful, and I just want to let you know before we wrap up and I give you your homework and your affirmations and your Merriment Missions deck pull assignment that I always have something truly special for you, which is the Merriment Makers. And if you're loving what we are talking about today and you are ready for more support and more connection and more personal growth, then this is the place for you. This is a community where we dive deep into these topics every single month. There's personalized group coaching, there's fun activities, there's a ton of merriment. And, this is a place where, honestly, it's all my life's work. It's all of my classes. It's everything. I've been doing this for 8 years in here. I've had my business for 11, but this has been going on for 8 years. And all these testimonials from right here are from people that have been with me for 8 years. Okay. And, these are some testimonials right here, and I'm going to read these to you. So I think this membership does a really good job in helping you embrace your uniqueness. And the resources are easy to handle. They're not fluff. This community reminds you that you're not alone. It doesn't feel like toxic positivity. It's not psychobabble. I've got all these amazing people doing the same thing and encouraging me. You feel like a better version of yourself. Wait, where is Alicia's? There were supposed to be 3. That's weird. Okay. And then this is our little mascot, the Merriment duck named Mary. This is a QR code if you want to scan it. It's currently 70% off right now. It's usually $333, but you can get your first month for $69. It's insane. There's literally 1,000 resources and counting. Okay. And here, let me show you more stuff right here. So there's 8 new modules a year. Is this going? Okay. So there's group coaching and Q&A. You get direct access to me. And this is a free call that I'm doing right now. All right. So imagine what you're getting paid inside of there. There's Merriment Mail, there's a newsletter, there's a free happy letter that comes out every month. It looks like this. Front and back color, 9 different sections. There's Merriment text, so you get good news on your phone every weekday. And there's also daily downloads. So literally every day you're getting a different text on your phone with a good news story and an image. Okay. There's a group chat and community. I'm posting in there every day. Everybody's posting in there. That's actually one of the people's favorite things that are happening. We have people from different parts of the world. There's 30 ready to go modules and masterclasses. These are just some of them. How to have fun again, partying with productivity, self-esteem, creativity. It's amazing in here. Truly amazing. And it should cost a lot more than what it is, but I want to make it accessible. So it is actively on sale right now for 70% off. The tagline is your source for daily joy, positivity, and mental resets. I'm actually working on right now making these 5-minute mental resets so that when you're out and you're worried about feeling isolated in a group, or you're worried about people judging you, you can come in and you can get these 5-minute EFT tappings. Did I say there's daily downloads? There's 3 new things in there every single day. It's crazy. It's crazy. And the whole website is, and you get a membership card in the mail. You get a birthday card on your birthday. I spoil you in the Merriment Makers. I spoil you. It's crazy. Okay. And there's a Facebook group. It's a lot. It's a lot. Okay. So if you want to get this, the marquee is going down at the bottom, uncustomary.org/merriment-makers. You can also just find it at uncustomary.org. But yeah, look at these are just some gratitude, body, teenage self-love. This is the self-love mecca, truly. There's no other membership online that has this many resources. I'll put my word on it. There's nothing else like this. It's feeling good fast. Skyrocket there. It's just constant joy in there. There's no way to not still feel good. Okay. And just talking about what we have today, this is what's inside of the self-esteem module. Okay, so there's self-esteem workbook, EFT and tapping, meditation, embodiment practice, what makes your life feel like a party, being kind to your inner critic, imposter syndrome, what are you tolerating, the self archetype, confidence cheat sheet, esteem tips, esteem mad libs, 4 challenges, positive self-talk, mirror work 101, expressions about yourself, creating boundaries 101, ways to say no, countering grievances with gratitude. Are you gonna become the ruins, or are you going to decorate it? Plus, there's always phone backgrounds, art posters, desktop backgrounds, inspirational quote images, Pinterest board, playlist, bonus affirmations, and book recommendations. And if you sign up now, you'll get my Merriment Making How to Create, Embody, and Spread Joy book. The QR code is right here, Merriment Makers. Okay. All right. So here are your, and I'll put it in the chat. Here are your affirmations for today for part of your homework, which is, I am the boss of my own self-worth and it is only going up. Okay? Say that with me. I am the boss of my own self-worth and it is only going up. I am the boss of my own self-worth and it is only going up. All right, let's do the next one, which is, I am embracing all of me, quirks, strengths, and everything in between. Let's say it again. I am embracing all of me, quirks, strengths, and everything in between. Let's do it again. I am embracing all of me, quirks, strengths, and everything in between. One more time. I am embracing all of me, quirks, strengths, and everything in between. Okay, and your homework assignment is to acknowledge your inner critic as a separate entity. Do everything that you can to try to separate as you're going through the day. Just kind of notice. Just have it now rolling around in your subconscious and just kind of notice, like, was that me? Was that something else? Was that them telling me that I wasn't good enough, that I was supposed to do enough here? And here's a tip. When you are exercising, what is it that your body tells you when you want to quit? Is it that this is good enough, or I can't keep going, or this is too much, or I'm never gonna get what I want anyway? Like, what is that feeling or that sentence that happens when you want to stop working out? That is likely the same thing and how it feels viscerally in your body for your inner critic. That's helpful, I think. And it's probably a very similar story for everything else that you're doing. Okay, and then for your other homework assignment is to just try one new confidence building activity. So I said that those were go on a solo date, keep a list of compliments, spend time naked, and speaking to your inner critic. Okay? And yeah. Oh, and then we also have a deck pull. So this is my Merriment Making Missions deck. And in here, there are 111 ideas for embodying, creating, and spreading joy out in the real world. It is a rainbow deck. It's beautiful. There are 7 different kinds of shapes. There's a shapes key, and there's different kinds of activities in here. So there's exploring, movement, self-care, kindness, celebrating, creating, and playing. And I always pull a card that is related to the lesson for today, which is self-esteem. And what I pulled was this way. List things you love about yourself. So that's a bonus assignment if you want to do that. And if you'd like a deck, I can mail you one. You can order it at using this QR code here. Nope, wait. What am I doing? I don't understand how to point on this thing. Using that QR code or the link uncustomary.org/merrimentdeck, and you can get your own one of these. These are great for starting activities out in the world, getting outside. You could use these for your solo dates. You can use them with kids. You can use them with clients. They're fantastic, and I love them. I love how rainbow they are. Okay, so make sure that you subscribe to my channel and leave a comment about what it is that you are going to do for your homework and list something that you love about yourself right now. And don't forget to check out our Merriment Makers because it's a doozy of a program and it's on sale and the sale's ending. So it's good. Good to get in now. Thank you for joining me for this hour of our free self-esteem talk. I'm your host, Mary England. You can find me on social media at Merriment Maker, and I will be back in 2 weeks with our next Merriment Mondays live, and we will be talking about releasing anger. So I will see you on September 30th at 12 p.m. Eastern for releasing anger. And in the meantime, like I said, follow me on social media at Merriment Maker, and you can also subscribe to my newsletter at uncustomary.org/newsletter, and you can just find all of the things at uncustomary.org. There's going to be a new webinar to sign up for. There's hosting events. There's all sorts of things. So that is the hub to find everything. I love you. And remember, you have to feel good to do good.